Good morning, everybody. It's Friday, December 27th, 5:27 a.m. Central Time. Grain markets are lower this morning. Matt Bennett is here. Mackenzie is here. Matt, did you have a nice Christmas?
Yeah, it was good. Kids
Mackenzie,
had
did you have a nice
fun.
Christmas?
Yeah, it was nice.
Christmas is the most cluttery time of the year at my house. It's like you got all the decorations out, and then I got little kids, and they just tear stuff. I'm kind of like, I love it, but I'm happy it's over,
Yeah.
Amen.
We can declutter a little bit. All right, let's
Mhm.
start the show. We had a nice rally in the grain complex yesterday.
So the rally was led by the soybean meal market, which gained a whopping 4.4% on the day. Soybean futures finished sharply higher, while soybean oil finished marginally lower. The March 25 corn contract gained 5 cents per bushel and posted its best close since June 25th. Wheat futures finished the day with marginal gains, but remain confined to a sideways pattern.
All right, Matt, let's start with corn. Best close since June in the March corn contract. So everybody who missed the, I won't even call it a rally in the summer, but the early summer highs or those higher levels, they can now go sell corn at those same type of levels. Why is that?
Yeah, I think a variety of things have gone on here. Obviously, I mean, you look at spreads, you look at basis. I mean, it just doesn't seem like it's been as tight as or as plentiful as what we thought it was going to
Mhm.
be. I mean, I don't know. I think the crop was there. The farmer was tight fisted, no questions asked. But maybe this crop isn't quite as big. I've been talking about this for a while. I still think maybe they kind of adjust this thing lower. But you look at how did we push up through the 200-day? I don't know. Whenever you're talking dryness, forecast for dryness in Argentina, clearly it's gotten the soybean meal market at least fired up somewhat. It's come to life. We were pressing COVID lows there for 2 to 3 weeks. And I think maybe that was just the added boost, if you will. I mean, I don't know. This corn market, to me, one thing we've seen is that anytime you get up to this 450 level and above, you continue to see basis widening just a little bit.
Mhm.
From the cash perspective, I don't know how much we'll participate if we go on up, but that's just my observation.
Let's take a look at meal. So meal had a big rally yesterday. This was the leader, and I wanted to show you guys this chart. The funds were record net short the soybean meal market as of last Tuesday, net short to the tune of 87,000 contracts. We're going to get to Argentina in a second, but we mentioned earlier in the week, if you see the meal rally start to really go, it's going to be because of Argentina. That's your tell that the market is watching Argentina. And I don't know. They've got a lot of shorts to cover if they're worried, Matt.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And the funds have shown, like for instance with corn, and they can, cover quite a few shorts in a
Yep.
brief period of time. Now, the interesting thing with corn is that it's been kind of a labored rally, if you will. If you would have said, "Hey, they're gonna cover their record short position and then go long a couple 100,000," people would have thought, "Well, we're going to rally a dollar." We haven't done
Mhm.
that, but we've had a nice rally. But yeah, there's no doubt that it could be a bit of a powder keg, if you will, if Argentina stays in this warm, dry type of forecast, seeing how short the funds are, because they could cover a lot of them very rapidly.
Okay, let's look at soybeans specifically. So we have rallied, and you've had what, a 40 cent, 50 cent rally off the lows. That's a decent move. I mean, it doesn't look like a big move on the chart. You're going to run into some trend resistance here. The soybean market itself still has a lot of problems.
Yeah, I mean, the problem, of course, with soybeans, just pure fundamentals,
Yeah.
both US and world. You look at US, and again, I could see maybe a little bit of a further reduction lower as far as yield goes
Yep.
here. But at the same time, what if we run into a few cancellations? I mean, bottom line is if Brazil has as big a crop as what we're talking, your world supply of soybeans isn't going to be the issue. I mean, why would beans rally just on Argentine dryness? Well, for those that haven't listened to you very long, I mean, clearly Argentina exports a ton of soybean meal on the world
Mhm.
market. In the past, 50% or more. They're losing a little bit of that foothold, but it's still their calling card. And that's the reason why soybean meal market might rally. But at the same time, it could be a very good selling opportunity for a market that's got what I would call burdensome supplies, both U.S. and world. And so, my personal opinion on beans is rally should be respected. I'm not going to say they should all be sold, but I would incrementally reward them personally.
Yeah, it's kind of odd. The corn rally appears to be a demand thing. It's a demand thing, and maybe the crop's a little bit lighter. Beans just appear to be kind of like it's almost a crop scare event led by meal, crop scare slash short covering event. You've got a lot of different things going on. Let's jump to Argentina and get to some of the specifics there.
So, rainfall across the country's soybean areas is slated to be scattered and well below normal during the next 2 weeks. Temperatures are expected to trend above average during the same time period. Argentina, of course, is the world's largest exporter of soybean meal. The sharp rally in the meal market on Thursday can likely be attributed to concern about Argentina's crop. The extended forecast indicates a more normal rainfall pattern across the country's soybean areas. Farmers in Argentina typically complete soybean planting during the first half of January.
Got a couple of good maps here from our friends at Crop Profits. So, on average, over the next 2 weeks, the Argentina soybean crop, weighted by production, is going to see only 40% of its normal rainfall. So, this is what the market is concerned about. I did fast forward and looked at the extended stuff, and it's much more normal. 102% of normal rainfall expected. So, like, totally normal during that 15 to 28 day period, if you're to believe the extended forecasts, which I do not. Interestingly, it's very early, Matt, when it comes to soybeans in Argentina. They're not even done planting. They usually finish planting like mid-January.
No, absolutely. And of course, if you're planting, you really don't want a whole lot of moisture anyway, And so I think we have to be mindful of that. Again, I think when you throw everything together, you just have to understand that if you get a rally, it's because the market in the past has been burned by essentially assuming, that Argentina is going to have a big crop. And then
Yeah.
a couple of years ago, they had a half a crop. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, there's folks out there that are holding long or short positions that are covering those and saying, hey, we don't want to get caught on the wrong side of this thing. Ultimately, do they think that soybeans are going to rally? Probably not, over the long haul. I mean, they may see a little bit of bump here, but you got to be respectful of the fact that if they have normal weather and Brazil ends up with what you would just call normal crop, I mean, you're looking at a massive increase in world stocks.
Yeah, I understand the short covering. I mean, if I'm a big fund trader and I'm very heavy short meal and I'm looking at that forecast, I'm doing the exact same thing,
For sure.
And you probably still got money made. I mean, you're buying it back, not that far removed from the lows. You're probably still doing all right.
Absolutely.
All right, let's jump to China.
So, the country is implementing measures to encourage the consumption of cereal grains. China has developed a plan to substantially boost consumption over the next 10 years. China is the world's largest producer of cereal grains, but still relies on corn and wheat imports to feed its 1.4 billion people. China was the second largest global corn producer last season. However, the majority of its corn is used for livestock feed. To increase grain production and quality, China plans to promote the development and planting of grain varieties that are suitable for human consumption. China is also focusing on the importance of developing international cereal grain standards and building stronger global partnerships.
This sounds like a bunch of kind of government nonsense to me. I threw this chart together, Matt. China cereal grain imports. So we did corn, wheat, barley, sorghum, rice, and oats. And it would certainly appear to me as if really since 2020, the trend has been higher when it comes to imports. And I think what they're kind of saying here is, yeah, we'd like to produce more, but we're going to push the idea of using more. So I think the imports probably continue.
Well, you would think so, for sure. I mean, one big concern, of course, we've had over the last year or two is just a bit of a slowdown as far as demand might be concerned on out over the long haul, given the fact
Yeah.
their population is kind of plateaued, if you will. But
Yeah.
bottom line is, if they're going to be increasing protein intake, it's good for a lot of different things. And certainly, as you suggested, it looks like it would be some of these cereal grains you've got on this chart.
I can't help but wonder if corn imports have peaked for this cycle. So they were up to almost 30 million metric tons during the 2020-2021 marketing year. USDA says they're going to be down to 14 million this year. I can't help but wonder what happens with that. China importing a lot of corn was such a new thing, 4 years ago. I wonder if was that a flash in the pan, or is this something that you're going to continue to see the next 5 to 10 years? I don't really know.
I think my biggest concern would be if there was ever a time for them to step in and buy a lot of corn, it would have been this year. We haven't really seen that. Clearly, we had multi-year lows. If they wanted to stockpile grain, which is something that they've done in the past, they've always done that, actually. This would have been the year to do so. And so for some reason, they didn't want to step in and buy corn. I was sure that they were going to come in and buy some corn. So I stand corrected. I really felt strongly that this would be the type of year they would want to do something like this. And we heard some whispers, and I think they bought a little bit of corn here and there, but it's nothing like we were hoping.
There was that flash sale, Mackenzie. Was a Tuesday where there was a flash sale of soybeans to China, and it was 132,000.
Yeah.
And then there was a corn sale to unknown, that was the exact same amount, 132,000, which like that's a China number, 132,000. I don't know, it's not a big amount, but it'd be nice if they were back for U.S. corn to some extent.
For sure.
So, Russian wheat exports are slated to decline significantly next season. According to Russian consulting group ICAR, wheat exports are slated to fall to 41 million metric tons during the 25-26 season, a 6% decline compared to the current season. Wheat exports during the current season are slated to decline by 5%, with the country projected to account for 20% of all global wheat exports. Russia is still expected to remain the world's leading exporter of wheat. The yield of Russia's winter crops is questionable due to a lack of moisture during the fall. Russia exported a record amount of wheat during the first half of the season. However, exports are projected to decline as a result of government-imposed export restrictions.
Matt, I feel like every other day or so, we've got some sort of story about Russian wheat production declining or exports declining. The wheat market cannot get out of its own way. I mean, we can't rally. It goes sideways. Even yesterday with the row crop rally, wheat didn't really do much of anything. Why is it just stuck in the mud the way that it is?
That's a good question, to be honest with you. Russia talking about a massive decrease in production due to weather, is something that we've heard over the last couple, 3-4 weeks. And, you would think that this market would kind of get off the mat. People say, oh, it looks like the U.S. crop might be in good shape. We don't produce near what they do. They're your number one exporter easily. And so my opinion on this wheat market, I mean, typically it's not the time of year that it leads the way. We know that. But at the same time, I feel like we have an opportunity here with this wheat market to catch some life at some point. Maybe the market is hesitant to believe what Russia's telling us as far as production is concerned, but by all means, if they're putting export restrictions on and they're not going to be the exporter they typically are, it's going to open the door for a fair amount of wheat trade, and we should be able to capture some of that. I think the wheat market is just oversold at this point. It's right for a rally, is my opinion. Somewhere in here,
the lack of volatility when you consider what happened just yesterday in
sure.
meal and in corn and beans, it's pretty shocking. It's not what I would have guessed if you would have told me, hey, here's where corn and meal and beans closed yesterday. What did we do? I would have guessed that probably sharply higher.
Yeah,
not the
I would
case.
guess the same.
USDA released weekly drought monitor data on Wednesday. Precipitation across the Corn Belt was limited last week. Drought conditions were mostly unchanged, with the exception of conditions improving in southeast Kentucky. The percentage of the region experiencing some level of drought is down about 6% compared to the same time last year. Precipitation was also limited across the High Plains, where drought conditions were also unchanged on the week. When we look at the percentage of U.S. areas experiencing drought, corn country, 54%, soybeans, 47%, winter wheat, 27%, spring wheat, 33%, and cattle country, 37%.
What do you make of the drought situation, Matt? It looks like the plains in particular could be problematic here. There's not a lot of rain in the forecast. I've got some maps here in a second. What do you think about the Midwest?
I mean, right now, most people are saying that they're dry. I mean, subsoil's dry. The interesting thing, like right where we're at here in Central Illinois, is that not much anhydrous was put on because topsoil was sticky, muddy, just on top. But you get underneath, we had very few tiles running, and so I think a lot of folks are concerned with, subsoil moisture. I mean, clearly a wet spring can change all that very rapidly. But I would say that it's almost every person that I talk to that's a producer, whenever you ask about, the Midwest, so to speak, almost every single one of them tell me the same thing. They're dry. And so it'd be kind of interesting to see how this all plays out. I mean, I go back to what, Eric Snodgrass has talked to me about this quite a bit. I think he's been fairly open that, some of his indicators are putting him at a better than 50-50 chance for some drought-like conditions. He's not saying we're going to have an all-out drought. It's just there's a lot of correlations between how dry we were this last fall, and what the following year looks like. And a lot.
You're talking like spring, summer.
Yeah, spring, summer of 25.
Gotcha. Here's some weather forecasts. So over the next week, most of your rain, if it's going to be in the Corn Belt, it's going to be the far eastern Corn Belt. You're talking Indiana, Ohio, maybe some lighter amounts in Iowa and Illinois, and then kind of the same pattern, just more of it during the extended period. The plains are still going to be pretty dry all the way from North Dakota down to Texas. Not really anything in the forecast over the next 16 days to speak of. What did cattle futures do yesterday?
Cattle futures were sharply higher. Live cattle were $1.97 to $3.05 higher. Feeders saw gains ranging from $3 all the way up to $4.50 in the March contract. Box beef also had an impressive day. Choice ended the day at $320.39. That was up $4.41, and Select ended the day at $288.77. That was up $2.02.
Cattle market thoughts, Matt?
I don't know. It's same thing that they've been. I think you got to stay protected. I mean, nice little move here, but at the same time, I just don't know if the funds are gonna keep pushing the envelope to the upside. I mean, they've been long for so long. I think if something spooks them, I'd be concerned if I had a lot of exposure if I didn't have myself protected.
Everybody have a wonderful weekend. Matt, thanks for joining us, guys. We'll be back on Monday.